Welcome to part 2 of our brand clarity series. By now you should have done part 1 and you should have a really good understanding of yourself and your business. I'm Nikki, and this time I'm here to take you through some tips and techniques for getting a better understanding of your customer. Establishing and maintaining a relevant brand requires engaging with customers in ways that are truly authentic and personal. So really understanding your customer is an integral part of the branding process. So in this phase, we'll go through a set of concepts and tools to really get below the surface and get some meaningful insights that are really going to help you with your brand and positioning. So let's forget about you and your business for a while and let's focus 100% on your customer. The skill you most need for this phase is empathy. You really need to be able to detach yourself from your beliefs and your own context and really stand in the shoes of your customer. Being able to detach yourself from your own context in this way to completely empathise with your customer is a skill that you should actively practice in business. And there are different levels of empathy that we apply in business. First, you need to really understand what your customers want and need. And then you really need to be understand your customers' problems and figure out how to solve them. And then the next level up again is actually being able to create solutions to problems that your customers don't even know they have. The first activity that we're going to go through is creating a persona mind map, and this is all about uncovering the ideal customer for your brand and business. When establishing or re-establishing a purpose-driven brand, we always recommend looking at your ideal customer, and those are the relationships that are positive, fulfilling and profitable. You might have many customers that come through your business that are profitable for your company, but they're nowhere near fulfilling or positive. And you don't want to spend your time and money acquiring more and more of those customers. It's just not sustainable for the long term. You want to set your brand up long term, which means seeking out, establishing and maintaining fulfilling relationships, and you've got a much better chance of doing that with people who are aligned to your brand values and purpose. By completing a persona mind map, you'll get a clearer understanding of your ideal customer. So all you need to do is grab a piece of paper or a whiteboard and draw a head in the middle or a name to represent your customer, and then just get to work writing down everything that you know about them. You'll need to cover functional aspects like job title, responsibilities, type of company they work for, the size of that company, things like that. And then you also need to cover the emotional aspects, so character, values, personality type, things like wants and aspirations, frustrations and fears. Just get it all down, and then when you're finished, you should have a much clearer picture of who it is your brand needs to speak to. Once you have a clear understanding of your ideal customer, then you need to get in and do your research. There are many different ways that you can do this, but today we're going to talk about 2 different methods, and that's empathy mapping and journey mapping. An empathy map is a tool that you can use to learn more about your customers and understand their internal motivations. We're using it today to help us with our brand positioning, but it's also a really useful tool for developing more meaningful insights for your marketing and communications later on. By empathising with your customers and imagining their situation, feelings and expectations, you can start to see where your values align and the frame or position that your brand needs to take in order to meet those needs. You can complete an empathy map activity with your team using previous personas, insights and data that you may have, but completing an empathy map with someone who fits into your ideal customer type is a much more effective way to understand their mindset and their behaviour. So grab some butcher's paper and draw up the template. You can find templates on our website, and grab some post-it notes, and then if you're doing it with your team, get each person to write down their thoughts for each section. And if you're doing it by interviewing your customer, you just write down your answers on the post-it notes and stick them around as you move through the empathy map. As you work your way around, make sure you talk about each answer and ask different questions to develop deeper insights. So here are some questions that you might ask to fill out your empathy map. At the top, where you've got thinking and feeling, you might ask questions like, what sort of things do you worry about? What sort of things do you want to change? What makes you feel like you've done a good job? And then moving around to seeing, this is all about your environment and what you see throughout the day. So what does your environment look like perhaps, or what types of media do you use? What are your things that you're looking at throughout the day? Round to saying and doing, you might ask, can you describe yourself in 3 words? So what's that person saying about themselves? How do they see themselves? What do they do? What does your day look like? Could be a question that you ask. Up and into hearing, you could ask, what influences you? How do you learn? So how do you absorb information? What influences you? What are you hearing throughout the day? And down the bottom of the map are pains and gains. So under pains, you might ask questions like, what frustrates you? Or what do you feel are your biggest obstacles and challenges? Things like that. And over on the gains side, you could ask things about, what are your hopes and aspirations? Or what does success look like to you? So they're just a few examples. You'll have to ask lots of questions to fill out every section. You can use those as a guide. Customer journey mapping is an activity used to track the entire journey or customer experience. It's a great way to understand the experience from the customer's point of view and allows you to really improve on that experience. The reason I use it as part of the brand clarity phase is because it can provide some really unique and useful insights into the mindset and behaviour of your customer, and also gives you a good understanding of their perception of your brand at each stage. Reflecting on this allows you to learn the current brand perception that you're creating and find ways to be more consistent and have a stronger voice when you're developing your brand strategy. So to start this activity, draw up a basic journey map. You can find a template on our website. And what you need to include across the top is the entire customer journey from pre-awareness, so when the customer first realises they even have a problem, right up to advocacy with your company. So the point of this is that you're going to map the entire journey and you're going to map the functional and emotional aspects of that journey. So across the top, you've got things like pre-awareness, awareness, engagement, pre-purchase, purchase, retainment and advocacy. And then down the side of the table, you want to include all the channels, so all the places that they might come in contact with or have an experience with your company. So social, online, in person, over the phone, email, things like that. It might be slightly different depending on your company. Once you've done that, you want to go through and first list the functional steps of the journey. So you want to go through and you want to actually determine, use some Post-it notes and write down what has actually happened along the way. So the customer has realised they have a problem, they might go to Google, so that'd be an online, they might talk to a peer for advice, so that would be an in-person. And you just want to go all the way along the journey and figure out how they've gone from the problem right through to engagement with your company, purchasing from your company, then you're retaining their relationship, and now they're advocates and what things are happening along the way. So once you've listed all the functional aspects, then you want to map out the emotional aspects of that journey. So when they first became aware of your company, it might be through social, or they saw a social post, or perhaps they were sent an email or something like that, then you want to map out how they felt. So what are the pain and delight points? How are they feeling, and what are the emotions been like along the way? And that'll really give you an understanding of the brand perception that you've created at each stage. So they might have started out feeling overwhelmed and uncertain. They downloaded something from you. They're now feeling motivated and enthusiastic. They engage with you and connect on social, or they visit your website and they learn about more, so they get a bit more clarity. So now they're feeling clearer and more hopeful. So that just gives you an idea of the types of things that you need to map out. So you need to layer this up with emotions, feelings along the way, as well as your touch points and the actual functional steps that have been taken. You can do this activity with your team by gathering all of their understanding and thoughts around your customers that they've gained over time. But a more effective way to do it is directly with customers, so you can really understand their thoughts and feelings at each stage. So here are my tips for this phase, and the first one is to listen. Empathetic listening is listening with the intent to understand. So make sure you really focus on what people are telling you. Then ask more questions to deepen your understanding. It's really important. The next tip I have is be aware of your biases. So reflecting on your biases and acknowledging them means that you can put them to the side. And this is really important. It's about being mindful of your first assumptions and beliefs. Once you're aware of them, you can ignore them. And it's easier said than done, but it's really important for this stage. Next tip would be avoid leading questions. So you don't want to ask questions that subtly lead to an answer or lead to a yes and no. You want to ask more insightful questions that sort of encourage the person to open up and tell you about their experience. So some questions might be things like, tell me about what happened when, or how did that make you feel? Why is that important to you? Or can you give me an example? They're much better questions than leading questions. Be genuinely curious. When you're genuinely curious, you want to understand the person you're interviewing, and you'll naturally ask more thoughtful and insightful questions. So get your frame of mind right before you start. And the last one would be pay attention to all kinds of communication. So our words are only 10% of our communication. You need to pay attention to the other 90%, which are made up of things like our tone of voice and our body language, things like facial expressions, posture, gestures, and things like that. Pay attention to these things, and that'll give you clues and help you read between the lines.